The Galactic Council thrummed with tension. Representatives from dozens of species, furry, scaled, carapaced, sat in a semicircle around a central dais, each one bathed in the soft glow of their holographic podiums. The air was thick with the faint hum of translators working overtime. At the center stood Aiden Voss, commander of the Resolute, a flagship of the Terran Defense Fleet. His uniform was crisp, his gray eyes sharp, but his expression betrayed the simmering frustration beneath his calm exterior. His gaze swept across the gathered delegates, searching for any sign of understanding amidst the mocking grins and dismissive sneers. "We request aid," Aiden said, his voice steady as steel. "The Tevrak Empire has already razed 2 of our outer colonies. Their fleets are massing on the edge of Terran space. This is not just an attack on humanity. It's the precursor to war against this council." A ripple of low, derisive laughter echoed through the chamber. Aiden's jaw tightened as a hulking Tevrak delegate leaned forward, emerald-scaled and sharp-fanged.
"Perhaps if the humans had something more than mining vessels and glorified cargo haulers, you would not need to beg for assistance. Perhaps the other delegates of this council will take you seriously. This is natural selection, human."
"Beg?" Aiden repeated, his voice dropping an octave as he turned to the rest of the council, ignoring the warmonger. "I'm offering you a chance to act before the Tevrak fleets come for your worlds. This isn't begging, it's strategy." The Tevrak delegate barked a laugh.
"Humans, always so dramatic. You fear war because you're weak. We Tevrak thrive on it because we are strong."
Valeric, the insectoid ambassador of the Catal, clicked softly before speaking. His melodic voice cut through the tension.
"Commander Voss has a point. The Tevrak have a history of consuming their neighbors once they gain momentum. Letting this escalate could—"
"Enough!"
The Tevrak interrupted with a guttural growl.
"We need no lectures from hive-minded drones."
Valeric's iridescent compound eyes shimmered briefly, a flicker of red anger that faded as quickly as it appeared. The council president, a feline syntraxy with tufted ears and an air of bored superiority, cleared her throat.
"Order. A vote is required. Will the council provide military support to the Terran Union?"
Holographic tallies filled the air. The result was undeniable. No. Aiden's fingers curled into fists as disbelief gave way to cold fury. "You're condemning not just my people, but yourselves. When the Tevrak come for you, and they will, you'll remember this moment." The Syntraxy president barely suppressed a yawn.
"The council has spoken, Commander Voss. Humanity must solve its own problems."
As Aiden turned to leave, Valeric intercepted him near the exit.
"Your people's strength is not weakness,"
the Catal whispered.
"Make them see that."
Aboard the Resolute, Aiden stood on the bridge, staring at the tactical displays. Around him, the crew moved with practiced urgency, their faces racked with tension. On the monitors, the outline of the Terran fleet floated like a patchwork quilt. Converted freighters bristling with missile pods, mining rigs repurposed as battering rams, and a handful of true warships anchored by the Resolute herself. Captain Rena Cade approached, her cybernetic arm gleaming in the dim light.
"The council's a lost cause, isn't it?"
Aiden nodded. "They think we're afraid of war. I think it's them who are afraid to challenge the Tevrak. They're more than happy to let them stomp all over someone, as long as it's not them."
"Well, we are," she said bluntly. "And that's not a bad thing. Fear keeps us from becoming monsters.
Aiden turned to face her fully. Fear won't save us now. The Tevrak won't stop unless we make them. Rena crossed her arms, her lips curving into a dry smile.
Then let's make them. The fleet's ready for your orders.
Aiden studied the displays one last time. Deploy the ghost buoys. Let them chase shadows. High Chancellor Ravlak Zoran surveyed the burning colony of new ascent from the bridge of her flagship, the Vehemence. The sprawling cityscape below was a mess of flames and collapsing structures, a testament to the ease with which her forces had overwhelmed the humans.
Humans are no warriors,
Ravlak declared, her red eyes glinting with disdain.
Their ships scatter like insects before a storm.
A lieutenant approached and bowed. The next target is within range, Chancellor. Shall we proceed?
Of course,
she growled with finality.
Crush them.
The Tevrak fleet advanced toward a convoy of refugee ships, but their sensors began to stutter. Ships blinked in and out of existence on the tactical display, and new signatures appeared at random.
Report!
Ravlak snapped. Ghost buoys, Chancellor, the lieutenant replied. They're flooding our sensors with false signals.
Primitive tricks,
Ravlak sneered.
Burn them out.
As the Tevrak ships began firing on the phantom targets, a cluster of real Terran vessels emerged from a nearby asteroid belt. Led by the Resolute, they struck in unison, focusing fire on the engines of the larger Tevrak ships. Explosions lit up the battlefield, and the Vehemence shuddered as its escort vessels were torn apart. Rena watched the battle unfold from the Resolute's bridge. She was surprised by this outcome.
They're pulling back.
They'll regroup, Aiden said, his tone clipped. And when they do, they'll come at us harder. Rena gestured at the tactical display, where the debris of the destroyed Tevrak ships drifted among the stars.
This was a good win, Aiden. Don't undersell it.
Aiden didn't respond immediately. He was lost in thought, considering all the possibilities and the contingencies for them. We need to hit them before they recover. Their arrogance is to our advantage. Let's use it. Ravlak sat on her throne aboard the Vehemence, her claws tapping against the armrests in irritation. The humans had won a minor skirmish, nothing more, but the thought of their defiance gnawed at her.
Send a task force to the Zalani system,
she ordered.
The humans will expect an attack on their core colonies. Let's take their trade routes instead.
The Tevrak task force reached the system with little resistance, their confidence growing as they prepared to strike a lightly defended human outpost. But as their ships entered orbit, a network of hidden orbital railguns activated, raining fire on the fleet. From below, missiles launched in synchronized waves, targeting the Tevrak supply vessels and command ships. The Resolute emerged from the shadow of a nearby moon, leading a devastating counterattack. Ravlak watched the carnage from the Vehemence, her rage simmering as her fleet disintegrated.
How?
She demanded.
They're ingenious,
her lieutenant muttered under his breath. As the battlefield quieted, Aiden was stood on the Resolute's bridge, his shoulders heavy with the weight of their losses. The victory was hard won, but practically Pyrrhic. Rena joined him, her cybernetic fingers flexing unconsciously.
We made them bleed. That's enough.
It's only a start, Aiden said, grim with the inevitability of future victories like this. This war is far from over. A final transmission was sent from the Resolute to the Galactic Council. A simple message accompanied footage of the shattered Tevrak fleet. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. Valeric watched the message from his private chambers, his antennae twitching with satisfaction.
And now the galaxy knows it.
The council chamber on Veloran Prime was subdued, a stark contrast to the mocking cacophony that had greeted Commander Aiden Voss weeks earlier. Reports of the Tevrak Empire's defeats had spread like wildfire, shaking the council's certainty. Yet no official action had been taken. In the shadows of the chamber, Valeric observed the debate, his iridescent carapace reflecting the low light. His compound eyes flitted between the delegates, noting the uneasy shifts in their postures.
Humanity is surprising,
murmured one representative.
Surprising?
Hissed the Tevrak delegate.
Their victories are nothing but the desperate flailing of a cornered beast. Their trickery will not last.
Valeric clicked his mandibles thoughtfully.
Perhaps. Or perhaps you've underestimated them.
The Tevrak delegate snarled, but said no more. Valeric's antennae twitched. The council was teetering on the edge of reconsideration. All they needed was another nudge. Back aboard the Resolute, Aiden Voss studied a map of the stars projected above the tactical table. Red markers denoted Tevrak fleets. Their movements were precise and methodical. Blue markers, representing the Terran forces, were sparse and scattered. They were being forced into reactive strategies.
We're bleeding time, Aiden,
Captain Rena Cade said, her tone as sharp as the edges of her cybernetic fingers drumming on the table. Aiden didn't respond immediately. His gray eyes remained fixed on the map as though sheer focus could will a solution into existence. Finally, he spoke. We can't meet them head on. Not yet. We need to keep them chasing us, spread them thinner. Rena crossed her arms.
And how do we do that when they've got a fleet 10 times our size? How long will it take to thin that to something we can face?
Aiden tapped a system on the map, an unremarkable star in a dense nebula. We make them think we're everywhere. The vehemence drifted through the nebula, its sensors straining against the interference. High Chancellor Ravlak Zoran paced the bridge, her tail lashing in irritation.
They're here, she growled. I can feel it. Chancellor, we've detected no confirmed targets,
a junior officer stammered.
Only echoes.
Ravlak bared her fangs.
Then burn the echoes!
The Tevrak fleet unleashed a barrage into the swirling mists. Explosions lit up the nebula, but no Terran ships emerged from the echoes. Moments later, a shrill alarm rang out.
Chancellor, the Ferox has been struck! Engine failure reported!
Ravlak's head snapped toward the view screen. The Ferox, one of her fleet's heavy cruisers, was now listing in space, its stern engulfed in flame.
By what?
She barked. Then came the junior officer's response.
We don't know. It came from inside the nebula.
Irritated, she commanded,
Return fire!
But there was nothing to fire at. In the heart of the nebula, the Terran ship, Wraith, powered down its cloaking field just long enough to launch another salvo. Its captain, a wiry man with nerves of steel, grinned as a second Tevrak cruiser detonated in the distance. Another ghost story for the Tevrak, he said. The Wraith reactivated its cloaking field, vanishing once more into the mist. On the Resolute, Aiden monitored the operation through a secure feed. The Ghost Fleet, a collection of Terran vessels outfitted with experimental cloaking technology, had been his gamble. If they succeeded, they could stretch the Tevrak fleet to its breaking point. If they failed, the Terran forces would lose their only offensive edge. Rena stepped beside him, watching the display.
You think this will work?
It has to, Aiden said. Days passed, and the Ghost Fleet's strikes became the stuff of legend. Tevrak ships went dark without explanation, supply lines crumbled, and entire battle groups were forced to retreat to regroup. Ravlak's frustration boiled over. On the bridge of the Vehemence, she slammed her fist against the console.
Enough of these games!
Chancellor, we've tracked their movements to a nearby asteroid field, an officer reported. It's likely where they're staging their attacks. Ravlak's eyes gleamed.
Finally, we'll flush them out.
The asteroid field was a graveyard of ancient rocks, their surfaces pockmarked by millennia of impacts. The Ghost Fleet lay in wait, engines cold to avoid detection. Inside the Wraith, the crew whispered nervously.
They're here,
one murmured, watching the Tevrak ships on the scanner. The Tevrak fleet entered the field cautiously, their weapons primed. Aiden observed the unfolding ambush from his command bridge aboard the Resolution with a dour expression. Hold position, he ordered. Wait until they commit. The Tevrak fleet pushed deeper into the field, their formation as tight as it can be. At Ravlak's command, they began bombarding the asteroids, their weapons carving a path of destruction. Aiden's hand hovered over the comms panel. Timing was everything. Now! The Ghost Fleet sprang to life. Hidden ships powered up and opened fire, missiles streaking toward the exposed sides of the Tevrak vessels. In the chaos, the Resolute and her escorts emerged from the field's far side, cutting off the Tevrak's retreat. Ravlak snarled as her ships were picked apart.
Regroup! Regroup and counterattack!
But it was too late. The Ghost Fleet's coordinated assault left the Tevrak disorganized and vulnerable. One by one, their ships fell. As the battle concluded, Aiden stood on the Resolute's bridge, his shoulders heavy with exhaustion. The Ghost Fleet had performed beyond expectations, but the cost was evident. Half of the Terran ships were gone, their remains scattered among the asteroids. Rena approached, her voice low.
This battle was a real wound. They were bleeding. Now they're hemorrhaging.
He nodded, but his expression remained grim. We can't keep this up forever. We're running out of ships, out of time. On the Vehemence, Ravlak watched the survivors limp back to formation. Her throne's armrests were beginning to fall apart from how often she clawed at them.
Humans,
she hissed.
vermin with delusions of grandeur. I will see them annihilated.
In the council chamber, Valeric watched the latest reports with a subtle but unmistakable sense of triumph. The humans had not only survived, they had changed the narrative. The council could no longer ignore them.
Restraint is not weakness,
he murmured, antennae twitching with each syllable.
And strength, when wielded with purpose, can be unstoppable.
He turned toward the Centraxi president, his voice resonating with quiet authority.
Perhaps it is time the council reconsiders.
The glow of Earth's protective shields shimmered in the darkness of space, a translucent barrier enveloping the cradle of humanity. From orbit, the planet seemed serene, but aboard the Resolute, the bridge was alive. Commander Aiden Voss stood at the central console, his cybernetically gray eyes scanning the tactical displays. The Terran Defense Network, bolstered by reverse-engineered alien technology, was holding, for now. Status on the planetary shields? Aiden asked.
They're stable for the moment,
Captain Rena Cade replied, her voice edged with worry.
but the Tevrak bombardment is relentless. The outer rings are taking a beating.
Aiden nodded, his mind racing through possibilities. We need to draw them away. If they focus all their fire on one point, they'll find a breach. Rena frowned.
And what exactly are we supposed to do, Aiden? We're outnumbered, outgunned, and every time we hit them, they come back with twice the force.
We make them regret coming here, he said quietly. High Chancellor Ravlak Saran stood on the bridge of the Vehemence, her crimson eyes locked on the shimmering blue-green world before her.
Terran resilience,
she said, the words dripping with disdain.
A desperate clinging to life that makes their eventual annihilation all the more satisfying.
Chancellor, an officer reported, his scaled hands roughly beating upon a console designed for Tevrak's brutishness. Our long-range artillery platforms are in position. We can begin sustained bombardment of the Northern Hemisphere. Ravlak waved a dismissive claw.
Proceed. Let them see their world burn.
The Tevrak fleet adjusted its formation, capital ships positioning themselves as mobile platforms for the bombardment. Fire rained down from orbit, crashing against Earth's shields in bursts of brilliant light. In Earth's lower orbit, Aiden studied the Tevrak's new formation. The enemy fleet was vast, a wall of gunmetal gray bristling with weapons that lit up the void with every barrage. Rena joined him at the console.
They've shifted their focus to the Northern Hemisphere, she said. If they concentrate enough fire, it'll collapse the shields over North America within the hour.
Aiden tapped a control, bringing up a map of the Earth's defenses. We're going to redirect power to that sector.
That'll leave the Southern Hemisphere exposed,
Rena said. Not for long, Aiden replied. He pointed to a cluster of icons on the map. We'll deploy the Phoenix Wing to intercept their artillery platforms. Rena's cybernetic fingers flexed.
Phoenix Wing? Aiden, those are untested prototypes. We've barely had time to integrate the AI protocols.
They're our only shot at disabling those platforms before they breach the shields, Aiden said firmly. Launch them. The Phoenix Wing launched from a hidden orbital station, a dozen sleek, angular ships streaking toward the Tevrak fleet. Each vessel was equipped with the Phoenix Protocol, an advanced AI system designed to enhance reaction times and tactical decision-making, and, most importantly, take over operation of the vessel even if the crew is incapacitated, allowing it to fight until it is utterly destroyed. Inside the lead ship, Lieutenant Kara Lorne gripped the controls, her eyes darting between the readouts on her display.
This is Lorne to all units,
she said, her voice calm despite the chaos around her.
Remember, the protocol is here to help, not to think for you. Keep control of your ships.
The Phoenix Wing tore into the Tevrak formation like a blade, their AI-assisted maneuvers outpacing the enemy's targeting systems. Artillery platforms exploded in fiery bursts, scattering debris across the battlefield. But the Tevrak weren't without their counters. Ravlak had anticipated a bold move and had stationed her elite fighter squadron nearby. The Shatterclaws descended on the Phoenix Wing with ruthless precision. Kara's ship shuddered as a plasma bolt grazed her shields.
Keep moving,
she shouted into her comms.
Don't let them box us in!
On the Resolute, Aiden and Rena watched the battle unfold.
They're holding their own,
Rena said, though her tone was tinged with doubt. For now, Aiden replied. We need to back them up. He turned to the tactical officer. Bring the Resolute into the fight. Target the Shatterclaws and give the Phoenix Wing some breathing room. The Resolute entered the fray, its railguns roaring as it unleashed a devastating volley at the Tevrak fighters. The Shatterclaws scrambled to evade, their sleek forms darting through the chaos. Ravlak snarled as she watched from the vehemence.
They are more coordinated than I expected. Impressive for humans.
An officer turned to her.
Shall we dispatch reinforcements, Chancellor?
No, Ravlak said, her voice cold.
Let them expend their strength. When this Phoenix Wing is broken, the rest will fall.
The battle raged on, the Phoenix Wing pushing deeper into the Tevrak formation. Kara's ship spun and weaved, her AI anticipating every maneuver with uncanny precision.
Lorne to command, she called over the comms. We've neutralized 3 platforms, but we've taken heavy losses, requesting reinforcements.
On the Resolute, Aiden clenched his fists. We can't spare any ships. Tell her to fall back. Rena shook her head.
You know she won't. Not while those platforms are still active.
Aiden hesitated, then gave the order. Tell her to do what she can. But if the protocol starts to destabilize, she needs to pull out. The Phoenix Protocol, while powerful, was still experimental. It pushed the limits of human reflexes, amplifying every pilot's reaction time, but at a cost. Already, the strain was beginning to show. Kara's vision blurred as she pushed her ship through another hairpin turn.
Systems are lagging,
she muttered. The AI's voice crackled in her ear.
Recommending power redistribution to stabilize critical systems.
Do it,
she said, her voice tight. The Phoenix Wing pressed on, taking out another platform before the strain became too much. One by one, their systems began to falter. On the Resolute, Rena's hands curled into fists.
They're dropping like flies. Aiden, we have to pull them out.
Aiden's expression was grim. It's too late for a full retreat. If they don't finish this, Earth is finished. As the last of the Phoenix Wing's ships fell, Kara's voice crackled over the comms.
Mission complete. Platforms neutralized.
The comms went silent, though her ship did return. The Tevrak fleet reeled from the loss of their artillery platforms, their formation in disarray. Aiden seized the moment. All ships, focus fire on their command vessels. Break their chain of command. The Terran fleet surged forward, hammering the crippled Tevrak with everything they had. One by one, the enemy ships fell, their formations crumbling under the relentless assault. On the vehemence, Ravlak watched in disbelief.
How?
She muttered.
How can they fight with such ferocity?
An officer turned to her, his voice trembling.
Chancellor, we're being overrun. Recommend retreat.
Ravlak snarled, her claws carving fresh gouges into brand-new armrests.
This isn't over.
The vehemence turned and fled, its remaining escorts following close behind. The battlefield fell silent as the last of the Tevrak ships vanished into the void. On the Resolute, Aiden sank into his chair, his exhaustion palpable.
We did it,
Rena said, though her voice carried little triumph.
But at what cost?
Aiden didn't respond immediately. His gaze lingered on the tactical display, where the icons of surviving Phoenix Wings reported successful return.
This war is far from over,
he said quietly. In the depths of space, a dormant artifact stirred. The activation of the Phoenix Protocol had not gone unnoticed. A ripple of energy spread across the galaxy, awakening something ancient. And, for the first time in millennia, the creators opened their eyes. The Tevrak Empire was in chaos. After their devastating defeat at Earth, the once dominant military machine had been forced into retreat. Entire fleets had gone dark, their commanders too afraid to face humanity's forces again. On the Resolute, Commander Aiden Voss stood at the center of a storm brewing far beyond Earth's borders. The Terran fleet was battered but defiant, their ranks bolstered by unexpected allies. For the first time, the Galactic Council, spurred by Valyric's tireless advocacy, had pledged aid. Small, fragile alliances were forming, but they came with strings attached. On the bridge, Captain Rena Cade adjusted her cybernetic arm, her sharp eyes watching as new data streamed across the tactical display.
"Reports from Valeric's team," she said. "The Tevrak have regrouped near Zayara. They're consolidating their forces with someone else."
"Someone else?" Aiden asked, his gray eyes narrowing. Rena tapped the display, magnifying the image of an unfamiliar ship, impossibly massive, its design unlike anything in the Council's databases. It radiated a deep, otherworldly energy, its sleek frame encased in glowing runes.
"This doesn't look like Tevrak engineering,"
Rena continued.
"Hell, it doesn't look like anything we've ever seen."
"It's not," Aiden said grimly. "It's them." Rena frowned.
"Them?"
"The creators," he replied, his voice low. The bridge fell silent. Everyone had heard the rumors. Ancient beings whose ruins littered the galaxy, whose technology had shaped every known civilization. They were thought to be long extinct. "It sure looks like they're awake," Aiden continued, "and that they're coming for us." Deep in Tevrak's space, High Chancellor Ravlak Zoran knelt before an altar of the creators. The shimmering hologram towered over her, its humanoid features sharp and unyielding.
"We have upheld our end of the bargain,"
Ravlak said, her voice trembling.
"Humanity is vulnerable. Together we can crush them."
The Avatar's eyes burned with a pale, cold light.
"You misunderstand, Chancellor,"
it said, its voice reverberating with mechanical precision.
"Our purpose is not to ally with the weak. It is to erase imperfection."
Ravlak's head snapped up.
"Imperfection?"
"Your species,"
the Avatar replied.
"Your wars, your chaos, they are a blight upon the galaxy. You will be purged alongside the humans."
Before Ravlak could respond, the transmission ended, leaving her in the dark. The Galactic Council convened in an emergency session, their once grand chamber now fraught with panic. Representatives shouted over one another, their fear palpable as images of creator ships filled the room.
"This is madness!"
A Syntraxi delegate cried.
"We cannot fight them! Their technology is millennia beyond ours!"
Valyric stepped forward, his iridescent carapace gleaming in the dim light. "And yet humanity has survived against impossible odds before. If we stand together, we might stand a chance." The chamber erupted into arguments, but Aiden's voice cut through.
Enough!
The room fell silent as the Terran commander stepped onto the dais.
The creators don't care about who's stronger or weaker,
Aiden said.
They've decided the entire galaxy is unworthy of survival. Running won't save you. Appeasement won't save you. The only thing that might save us is fighting back. Together.
And if we fail? A Point delegate asked.
Then at least we die fighting for something.
Aiden said,
rather than die cowering in the dark.
On the Resolute, preparations for the final battle began. The fragile coalition of Council forces gathered at the Zayara system, their combined fleets a patchwork of technologies and strategies. Rena stood beside Aiden in the war room, her brow furrowed.
This alliance is held together by duct tape and prayer. The second things go south, they're going to scatter.
They won't have the chance, Aiden said. He pointed to a hologram of the Creator flagship. That ship is the key. If we take it out, their command structure collapses.
And how do you plan on doing that?
Rena asked, eyeing the ship which was practically half of the enemy fleet by itself. Aiden hesitated, then activated another display. It showed the Phoenix Protocol, its systems now updated and refined. We're bringing the protocol back online. Rena stiffened.
Aiden, last time it killed nearly everyone that used it.
It's been improved, Aiden replied matter-of-factly. And we don't have a choice. Rena's jaw tightened, but she nodded.
Then we better make it count.
The combined fleet entered the Zayara system, their ships forming a loose defensive line. Before them, the Creator fleet loomed, their vessels shining like dark stars. Aiden's voice came over the comms. All ships, this is Commander Voss. We stand here today not as humans, or Syntraxi, or Catal, but as a united front against annihilation. Hold the line, and we may yet see tomorrow. The battle began with a deafening roar as the coalition opened fire. Missiles streaked across the void, railguns thundered, and energy beams lit up the darkness. The Creators responded in kind. Their weapons were elegant and devastating, cutting through ships as if they were paper. Entire squadrons vanished in bursts of white light or sudden spheres of inescapable black. Aboard the Resolute, Aiden directed the battle with unyielding focus. Phoenix Wing, target their flanks. Draw their fire. The newly outfitted Phoenix Wing tore into the Creator formation, their AI-enhanced maneuvers dazzling even their own allies. But the Creators adapted quickly, their ships shifting to counter the still human pilots. Rena watched the display with a sinking feeling.
They're learning too fast,
she said. Of course they do, Aiden replied, which is why we need to act now. On the battlefield, the coalition was faltering. The Creator's relentless assault had broken through the defensive line, and panic was spreading. In the chaos, Valyric's ship took a direct hit and its engines began failing. As the Catal ambassador struggled to regain control, he activated his hive mind communication.
All Catal units reform at the center. Reinforce the humans.
The Catal ships rallied, their hive coordination shoring up the coalition's defenses. Aiden and Rena prepared for the final strike.
This is suicide,
Rena said as she strapped into her seat. Probably, Aiden said. But if we don't stop that flagship, nothing else will matter. The Resolute, escorted by the Phoenix Wing, charged toward the Creator flagship. The Creator ship turned its weapons on them, its energy beams tearing through the void.
Evasive maneuvers!
Aiden shouted. The Resolute weaved through the onslaught, its railguns firing relentlessly until just barely before the threshold of irreparable overheating. The Phoenix Wing darted ahead, their AI pushing them to the limits of human capability. Inside the Creator flagship, the ancient AI core detected the approaching Terran ship. It recalibrated its defenses, focusing all firepower on the Resolute. Aiden's heart pounded as alarms blared.
We're not going to make it,
Rena said. Yes, we are, Aiden replied. Activate the payload. The Resolute's experimental weapon, a destabilized fusion core, began to charge. Its energy readings spiked, drawing the attention of every ship in the sector.
Aiden,
Rena began. I know, he said. The Resolute barreled toward the Creator flagship, its payload ready to detonate. At the last moment, Aiden and Rena activated the ship's automated systems and launched their escape pod. The Resolute collided with the Creator flagship, the fusion core detonating in a blinding explosion. The shockwave ripped through the battlefield, taking the flagship and dozens of Creator vessels with it. As the dust settled, the Coalition fleet regrouped. The Creator ships, now leaderless, began to falter. The combined forces of the galaxy pressed the advantage, driving the remaining enemy vessels into retreat. On the bridge of a Catal cruiser, Aiden and Rena watched as the battle finally ended.
it's over,
Rena said, her voice heavy with relief. For now, Aiden replied. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council recognized humanity's leadership. The fragile alliances forged in battle began to solidify, though Aiden knew the peace would be temporary. Valeric approached him in the council chamber.
You've given the galaxy something it hasn't had in centuries,
The Catal ambassador said. What's that? Aiden asked.
hope.
Valeric replied. Far away, in the depths of uncharted space, another Creator fleet stirred. Humanity's war wasn't over. It had only begun.